In this series of the spiritual vignettes, we're trying to present to you the teachings of the Catholic Church with regard to the attainment of eternal life. In the last lesson, we showed you that the things that we are teaching is taken from two sources which are called the fonts of revelation. These are the sources of divine revelation of the Catholic Church, and this is scriptures and tradition. Not merely from one, because if only from one, we can never consider it as Catholic. Catholic teachings have two sources, tradition and sacred scriptures. The importance of faith and the way we are describing faith in this series is taken from the Catechism of the Catholic Church, Part 1, consisting of 241 pages. The importance of scriptures and tradition is taken from the same Catechism of the Catholic Church, Part 1, Article 2, Chapter 2. Now let us briefly go back to the concept of reason to lead us towards God, Christ, and His commandments. Reason is natural to man, and if one reasons properly, he will reach the concept of one God. It is so natural to man to know that there is a superhuman being above him. Practically all nations and all people have these feelings. For instance, some people feel that to pass a certain tree, you need to ask the permission of the spirit that is surrounding that tree. When one passes a termite hill, he feels there is a being which is higher than man that is guarding that hill, from whom he must ask permission before passing by. Now this belief is so common to all men that they know there is a being that is over man, over themselves. Now if you reason correctly, you will never say that the superhuman being is a snake, as the Aztecs believe, because Aztecs are not superhuman beings. For all practical purposes, they seem even to be lower than man. If you reason rightly, you will never say that this human being, which is above all human beings, is a Kashawari, as the Papuans would believe, or a crocodile, as the Egyptians would believe. So you see, all men by nature know that there is a superhuman force above them that they must respect. When there is an earthquake, there is a storm, there is an eclipse of the sun or eclipse of the moon, they know some superhuman being are playing with these forces. Now, if one reasons correctly, they would say that this superhuman being is some sort of a God. And because this God exists and gives them rules, like for instance, don't pass by the street without permission, don't pass through the tree without permission, don't pass through the termite hill without permission. They know that this God demands something from men, sort of a commandment. And if a person reasons correctly, he will know that the commandment is the first golden rule. The golden rules are common to all men, good men anyway. And the first golden rule is, don't do unto others what you don't want others to do unto you. If you look at these commands, it is quite easy to detect what are the things you should not do to others, because all you have to do is sit down and find out what you don't want others to do unto you. Do you want others to hurt you? No. So don't hurt others. Do you want others to steal your property? No. So don't steal the property of others. You don't want others to look into your bank account, then don't do it to others. If you look at the newspapers, you will see that almost everyone, mostly Catholic, are doing to others what they don't want others to do to them. You know, for you to follow this golden rule makes you a good pagan. But these people in the newspaper cannot even do it, and they are Catholics, which means they are not even good pagans. In other words, they are bad pagans. If a person continues to reason correctly, he will go to the second golden rule. The second golden rule says, do unto others the good that you want others to do unto you. Now that's more difficult. More difficult. For instance, if you want others always to provide you with food so you don't die of hunger, then do the same good to others. See to it that others don't go hungry. So you see, the second is more important and harder, more difficult than the first one. If you cannot do the first one, definitely you cannot do the second one. And then, of course, as you proceed, you will discover the existence of God-made man, Jesus Christ. You will discover His commandments, and you will notice that the commandments of Christ are much, much more difficult than the first two golden rules. So when you read the newspaper and see Catholics not even behaving like good pagans, how do you expect them to behave like good Catholics? Now that is a big problem for the Catholic Church. Our focus should be on the obedience to the commands of Christ, just as pagans should concentrate on the obedience to the golden rule. You see, when you obey the golden rule, or for us Catholics, we obey the commandments of Christ, we begin to know more who is Christ. And we will begin to know more who is God, and we are going to see the defects, whatever defects we had in our reasoning. So again, the more commands of Christ we obey, the more we shall know Christ, the more we shall know God, and the more we shall discover the errors that we made in our reasoning. If this is the case, it is so important for us to focus our attention to the commands of Christ. In our past lesson, we mentioned to you that, Christ had many commands. If you spread it out like a deck of cards, it could be in the hundreds. But you can put them together into one or two. For instance, among the so-called specific commands of Christ, that's the spread out commands of Christ, we have such commands as to feed the hungry. But then you have to feed the hungry the way Christ instructed us to do it, and not in the way that you want. For instance, Christ wants us, when we feed the hungry, to personally do it. He doesn't want us to give our donations or contributions to institution and let them feed the hungry. He doesn't want to do that. He wants you to do it personally. And when you feed the hungry, He would want that the food that you feed them with comes from your own earnings. It is your own money, and it does not belong to someone else. So you see, the commands of Christ has to be done in exactly the way He wants and not the way you want. And so these spiritual vignettes, we are going to concentrate on, eventually anyway, the specific commands of Christ one by one, and we shall describe to you how each one has to be accomplished. Today we live in very bad times. Because of wrong reasoning, people never reach the concept of one God and the true Christ. Even among Catholics, because we are Catholics more by inheritance or by accident, because we were accidentally baptized Catholic or born within a Catholic family. Today also people are too emotional and therefore never reach the concept of a true God. The third obstacle to reaching the knowledge of a true God is when we don't think. If you don't think, you would never reason rightly and never reach the knowledge of one true God. Today, people reason wrongly. They are emotional and they don't think. And in this program, therefore, little by little, we shall analyze these defects of the church, make provision for solutions from Scriptures and the Fathers, and hopefully we might find at last the concept of a true God and true Christ. May the divine assistance be always with you.